Well, to me, even to this day, when I go Atlantic salmon fishing, it's a completely different feeling that I get inside, almost a spiritual thing.
But then there's this much deeper human dimension. It's about connecting with someone. It's about helping them do something they really want to do. It's about giving them a tool that makes them hopeful.
I believe God gave me a gift, a special ability that is something extraordinary to me, that I have this gift and I'm awed by it. When I finish a fish, I look at the fish and I can't believe I did it.
I have a problem in every way you could have a problem with fly fishing. I have to travel everywhere. I have to get to know everyone.
Yeah.
I have to read everything I can get my hands on. Welcome to Flyline Podcast, where we enjoy the interesting stories behind the legendary guides and luminaries connected to Maine fishing. I'm Michael Jones. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Reggie Hammond. Reggie Hammond is a retired Maine game warden whose career spans over 3 decades of service to the state of Maine. Based in Rangeley, Reggie has dedicated his life to protecting the state's natural resources and helping those who explore them. His journey into law enforcement was inspired by his uncle, and over the years, Reggie built a reputation for integrity, grit, and a deep respect for the outdoors. In this episode, Reggie shares unforgettable stories from his time in the field, from catching poachers to rescuing lost hikers, offering a rare look behind the badge. He also reflects on his lifelong love of fishing, with adventures that have taken him across the globe, including steelhead trips to British Columbia and bone fishing in the Bahamas. Later in the conversation, Reggie opens up about his personal endeavors and speaks candidly about what might be next, possibly trading in snow for sunshine in his next chapter. It comes with humble respect to introduce the Flyline audience to one of the best game wardens to ever wear the badge. Reggie Hammond, welcome to the Flyline Podcast.
Mike, good to see you. It's been too long.
Yeah,
You look great.
You look great too.
We're all
Reggie.
getting older.
We're not any faster than we used to be.
No.
Reggie, we are up here at Dallas Plantation at your house. How long have you lived here?
32 years. We moved up here in December of 93, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. I got transferred. I actually voluntarily took the warden job and transferred out of the Saco district.
Yeah. Let's back up for the audience, Reggie, because it helps me too.
Sure.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Portland. My parents had a place in Turner, so I got most of my outdoor experience there. Up and down the Androscoggin River and brook trout fishing, the small streams and ponds and ice fishing and all that stuff. But yeah, that's where I got most of my outdoor experience.
What did your parents do?
My father worked for Gulf Oil Corporation,
Yeah.
and back then my mother was the homemaker and raised the kids and carted us all around to different things. But Portland was fun, good place to grow up, lots of kids, lots of athletic events going on, and yeah, it was cool.
Was your father a fisherman at all?
Yeah, I started bass fishing.
Yeah.
Well, jitterbug, hula popper deal on these little ponds. It was awesome. And then I think I threw my first fly at maybe 11 or 12. I went with my uncle up to some ponds in the Jackman area.
Oh, yeah.
And got hooked on that even at a young age. It was awesome.
So you learned how to fly fish when you were an adolescent, really?
Yeah, I took some years off and then obviously started back up in high school and college, and used to ride our bikes from Portland and go fish Mill Brook and Highland Lake and all those little brooks and streams around. It's fun.
It is. Did you graduate from high school in Portland?
Yeah, I graduated from Deering and then went to USM.
You did?
Right there. And then a short time after that, I moved out to Colorado for a bit. I worked at a big sporting goods company out there, Gott Brothers. But I missed the ocean and missed all the water. Came back and did the whole bartending thing down in the old port for a while, which was, fun for a kid in his mid-20s.
I can see you doing that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And then worked for the fire department, got hired by South Portland Fire Department and worked there for 3 or 4 years, and then took the test for the warden service and ended up being hired in 89 or 90. I think it was 90.
Yeah. So I'm 55. How old are you now, Reggie?
65.
Yeah. So you were 10 years ahead of me at that point. So yeah, I was just getting out of high school when you were going into the warden service. What was your vision at the time? Not what it is now. Don't reflect back on it.
Right.
What were you thinking the warden service was going to be?
Well, my uncle kind of pushed me towards it. And I had talked with some game wardens, and I think I even knew Blaine back then, and everybody spoke highly of it. And not only did I enjoy fishing and hunting, but I had a passion for catching people that broke fishing game laws. I didn't like that. And I don't know, it all seemed to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Took the test, and first time I took the test, I didn't get high in. And the second time, and I'll give my wife at the time, Janet, all the credit in the world. I wasn't going to go, but she pushed me to go, and I went and
Good.
got high in, and here we are.
Yeah. What was it like when you first started? Where were you located? Where did they put you when you first started?
Well, you go through the academy. I think it was about 18 weeks back then, 20 weeks. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that was fun. But anyway, everyone's got to do it. And then my first district was Saco.
Yep.
And I was able to live in my existing house in South Portland. But I had benefit of Rundle all the way up to Cape Elizabeth. And believe it or not, there was a lot going on. I was a pretty avid duck hunter, so I worked duck hunters a lot, and of course deer season, and was up to Sebago a lot with a couple of game wardens up there, and spent a lot of time doing smelts and fishing and all that. So it was a cool district. I learned a lot in a very short time.
And you liked it?
Loved it.
Yeah.
And what's not to love? Snow machine, truck, boats, credit cards, and go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
And you're like the sheriff in town.
It was just a great job. Yeah. It was ecstatic.
And you saw an opening happening. Did you go anywhere else between Saco and Rangeley?
No. After about 3.5 years, and back in those days, boy, there was not many people retiring, so the openings were far and few between. And then there was an opening for Rip Dam, and I thought I was going there. And then my buddy Chris Simmons took that. And then it came down to Bridgeton and Rangeley, and I put in for both, not really knowing what I was going to do. And it's based on seniority. So there was a person with more seniority that put in for Bridgeton.
Yeah.
They got it. And then I chatted with my wife and talked with Blaine and a few other people up here, and moved up here in 93.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but was the warden that was retiring from Rip Dam, was that Alvin Terrio?
I think it was in Alvin, yeah. Because it was back in the early 93, 94.
Yeah. He was tying flies at the dam, literally, at the Praise. Campground was down at Big Eddy, but Praise also had a place at the store.
Yeah, Charlie Pride.
Yeah, up there.
Yep.
Charlie was a politician.
Legislator, right.
Yeah. And so Alvin used to sell his flies right there, and I'd go by him and pick his brain on what to use, and he was a woodsman.
Oh, yeah. Alvin was a great game one.
I think he's
did a lot of stuff.
Up in Patton.
Yeah, he's still selling flies. He breeds chickens and all kinds of stuff now. Yep. Some of my guys buy their stuff from him, their fly tying material.
Patton?
Good guy. Sherman Station, maybe, or right outside of Patton, or close. You're on the right. It's Route 11 there somewhere.
The lines are blurred.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, no, he was a good guy. And Chris took his district, and then we had actually Bill Hanrahan was the game warden in Farmington.
Yep.
And he got killed in the line of duty. And then the game warden here was Tom Jacobs. Tom Jacobs took Farmington district, which opened this district.
That's right. And Tom grew up in Mount Vernon.
Yeah, so Tom. You know Tom.
And Hanrahan died. What was the circumstances around that? I remember it, but I don't remember the details. Did he
chasing some guys through the woods, had a heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I remember. I might be off a little bit, but I don't think so. Yeah,
so
good guy.
His daughter, after he passed away, Hanrahan's wife and daughter moved to Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And we went to high school together.
Oh, really?
Just 6 degrees of separation with all this shit.
Yeah.
It's just
like
everyone knows everyone. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But so then you came here.
Yeah, I came here, and Charlie Atkins was the game warden in Palmachini country, so I hid in his back pocket for the first year, learned as much as I could, and he retired. It was overwhelming territory back then, but it was damn cool. All the fishing and hunting and stuff.
Did you know then the history around this area?
A little bit. I used to camp up here when I was a kid. I remember one day in warden service, they asked, where do you want to be in 5 years in this outfit? And I remember saying, district game warden in Rangeley, Maine. And I got there in 3 years. I was very fortunate.
What did you find when you came here?
Just a lot going on. It was so much different than the Portland area where you were more of a reactive game warden. You got the phone, you got the calls. Hey, this guy, I think he shot 2 deer. We got a spinning raccoon, blah, blah, blah. Up here, you had to dig your own stuff because it's way more rural, wooded. I mean, you got a few complaints, but it wasn't most of the really good resource tickets that you write when you dug up on your own. You knew where the smelts were running and where the fish were at certain times of the year and tried to work your days around the resource and where they were. It's cool.
Just as a guide, it's fun in the springtime. I'll be guiding on the river, and a client will say to me, I want you to think like early May. I gotta make sure I have my license. Well, I show you, yeah, that's right. You do need to have your license. He goes, because we might get checked. And I said, well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. These guys are in bed right now because they just spent the whole night out watching smelters because there's a lot of pressure on the smelts, illegal pressure.
Yeah. Well, in the springtime, the days weren't long enough. You'd work all night, come home, maybe grab a couple hours of sleep, go out on the lake, because Rangeley was ice out fishing, right? That's when the best fishing was. I'd leave a boat there and go out and check some people. And, and we always had the people that we wanted to catch that we knew were probably tiptoeing around the log.
I bet you got some wild stories.
Yeah. But it was long nights. It was just very long nights, but you felt like you were doing something. You were either checking people at the open smelt runs or sitting on closed smelt runs. So,
just so we understand, what were these guys doing? Were they going to sell those smelts, or were they going to?
I don't know. I think we had some issues with some commercial guys too, but a lot of it was just recreational smelters. And I think part of it is you're pent up all winter. It's the first thing of spring. The smelts are running, peepers are out. It's a nice night. And in my career as a game warden, I think a lot of people don't go out with the intention of breaking law, but they're opportunists. If there's a ton of smelts in a stream, sometimes they can't help themselves. And, hopefully one of us is there when that situation arises.
I remember you told me at one point you were out with Spar when he was young, when he was first coming on the warden service, and you came across some smelting activity.
Smelt thing. Yeah, that was on a closed brook, and Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, you remember that story, do you? Well, we came to this closed brook. I was showing Tim where we were going to work a little later, and I walked down in the driveway, and there was a bucket and a net sitting off to the side, and I'm like, Tim, yeah, I guess nobody's here tonight. Let's get out of here. We'll come back maybe around midnight or something. And yeah. So he jumped in and drove, and I went up the road a little ways and then got out of the truck and went back. And yeah, then things went a little south after that. But I didn't see these guys on the brook, and I heard a car coming. I poked up the driveway. I could see these three guys running down the Route 17, and I started chasing them. They had a couple smelt nets in a bucket. And I started chasing them. And back then I was in good shape and was catching them. And the car pulled in and pulled up to them. And they're like, get in. And so they all got in and they're like, hit it. And they weren't going to run me over, but it was all happening pretty quick. And I had nothing but a pair of binoculars in my hand. And I don't know. I ended up blowing out their back window with those things. And finally, I got Spar up there, and he finally caught up to him, got my binoculars back. And, of course, they had no smelts then. They dumped them on the side of the road somewhere. Yeah, I might have ended up in Augusta with a little chat about that, but still a good story.
Did they ever did they get written up about
Yeah, I forget I think failure to stop for a police officer. We couldn't really prove the smelt stuff because everything had gone at that point. But it was still,
But you knew firsthand they were up to no good.
Oh, they were right on a closed smelt brook with a 5-gallon bucket and a net.
Yeah.
That usually, elements of the crime right there. Fun.
Winters are hard up here.
Yeah.
Is it quieter for you as a game warden?
Well, it's not resources much related stuff. I mean, we have a lot, of course, this is big snow machine destination up here. So we cover a lot of snow machine accidents and patrol that. And I used to go away a little bit in the wintertime. I'd go up north and work ice fishermen up at Long Lake, way up in the county, or go down and work Sebago or something. But yeah, lots of snow machiners and a few hunters, rabbit hunters, cat hunters, stuff like that. But not a lot of resource-related stuff in the wintertime because we have no ice fishing here, basically.
Listen, I want to ask you about that. I was talking with someone about that. Moosehead, they just ice fish the hell out of it, right?
Right.
Why is it that I'm really glad they don't? I don't even want to say it out loud, but what is the history behind the regulations that there's no ice fishing in the big lakes here?
Well, back in the 50s, yellow perch were illegally introduced, and I think they just infiltrated this whole watershed. It started in Gull Pond and spread into Haley and then into Rangeley and then off to the races after that. And I think the state is concerned about illegal introduction of fish or possibly diseased fish, bait fish being used. And yeah, they've kept it pretty pure.
You wouldn't find guys ice fishing, would you?
In all the years I worked up here, I don't recall ever getting an ice fishing ticket. And I used to work it. Some of these, on the weekends, people would come up in Rangeley, and then I'd always ride my snow machine around looking for holes. I used to find some holes, but I honestly think they were people getting water for their camps. It wasn't...
Or depth.
Yeah, they weren't actually fishing.
No.
So no, I never saw any indication, and I never got a call on it.
In all those years?
All those years, yeah.
Yeah. And look at how the fishing is. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got an opinion on how these waters should be managed, but I think the state does a pretty good job for the most part. And you've got beautiful lakes, Aziscohos, Richardson, Mooselook, Rangeley, and Bagog. There's some beautiful lakes. There's a lot of water.
There's a lot of water up here.
Yeah, yeah.
And now that you're getting a little older, Reggie, you said that the warden service wasn't kind to your body. You went out on the ponds a little more.
Yeah, I've noticed anybody that's been up here for a length of time has just seen the amount of increased pressure on moving water. I remember I used to work the McGalloway back in the early 93, 94, 95, and I wouldn't check 10 people the whole year.
Right.
And on the last day that I worked in June, I know I stopped counting at 32 people. Mm-hmm. That's from the dam all the way down to Kasperzak's fields and to the covered bridge. It's just fly fishing has gone crazy, and everybody wants to fish moving water.
Yeah.
To get into this for solitude, yeah, I've moved to some of the ponds.
I think there's a couple of factors that are playing in there. One is, I don't think we, and I'm not saying the state, I'm meaning all of us, people that are connected to fishing, we all influence it, haven't done a good job of maintaining the other fisheries that people could use. As an example, you remember when the Androscoggin River 20 years ago, you could catch big rainbows and browns out
Beautiful fishing, right.
And many days I would go there and spend the whole day. Well, if you're a young, avid trout fisherman that's got trout on his mind, you've got to go to Rangeley in order to catch them, because that's all there is now.
Well, in that, and I think social media too, you see all the pictures of all this, look at this, and people have become very good fly fishermen now, Mike.
Yep.
I mean, we used to learn I learned from Skeet Davenport and some of my other friends. Now you just go on some website and it's got what rock to stand on and nymphing and depth. There's a lot of really, really, really good fly fishermen and women out there now. So,
and there's a lot of talented guys. Like, we're mutual friends with Chris, and Chris, with the best intentions, is just trying to feed his family.
Right.
But what's stopping a guy he guides from going back the next weekend?
Was one of the reasons I got out of guiding. I felt like I was kind of prostituting myself. What I've learned for 30 years, I'm selling to a guy for $400. There is no the guy. And then Chris sees that happen. I mean, I think as a guide, Mike, you pick and choose your people. You can tell when people are, that's what they've got up their sleeve. And you might not, you might lead them away from some of the more, I don't know if secretive is the right word.
Well, I've ended friendships over showing a guide friend a piece of water on a day off, finding him there with clients a couple weeks later. We're done, buddy.
Yeah.
We're done.
I know. I feel the same way. I'm passionate about it. And I'm even ridiculously passionate about it now. I take my buddies to spots now, and I'm like, you come back here without me, and it's over, pretty much.
It is.
But it is. We're both passionate about our fishing, that's for sure. So it's a good thing.
You think the fishing's, I know we just talked about the pressure on the rivers, but in terms of how are the ponds holding up?
I think pretty good. I don't think they're utilized like the moving water is. And ponds can be very difficult. We've got some ponds up here. And some of these ponds, you go and fish for 2 or 3 days and hardly get a fish or two. And then on the third day, you get a half a dozen over 18 inches. And they're really finicky. Yeah. And they're longer to learn. Mm-hmm. It's not like going to McGalloway where you've got pools that there's fish in, or the Kennebagos. So it's a little more difficult for people to dial those ponds in.
And the old timers that know these ponds, they know how to fish them. They know where, when, depth.
Right.
God forbid they fish over a spring hole. Most people are good about not doing that.
Right.
And for the audience, the spring holes where there's a cold water source coming in during the stressful time of year, which is like August.
Right. And most of these ponds, especially the shallow ones, Quimby and some of the up at 4 ponds and 7 ponds township, there's spring holes. But it's not illegal, but definitely kills some fish when you're hauling them out of 50-degree water into 75-degree water.
And then expecting them to swim back to the bottom again.
Right. And another thing I see people overplaying fish and using really light tippet. I don't know. It's just, we all want to catch fish, but
Or once they get it, they hold it out of the water forever.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like you and I going out and running a marathon in 85-degree weather and then coming back and having your head stuck in a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
I mean,
For 45 seconds.
yeah. I think people are getting a little better about it because, now there's people that confront people on the field, in the field about that, and not in a mean way. Just say, "Listen, hurry up, get that picture and get that fish back in the water."
Yeah.
Especially these nice in the September. Those fish, there's a high mortality of fish just from spawning.
I know.
Not to mention if you hold them out of water and overplay them or sag them and all that stuff.
Yeah, when you have 30-something anglers, I don't even know, is McGalloway open in October at all?
McGalloway isn't, but at the end of September, those fish, no big secret where they are,
They're
and
staging out.
yeah, and they're so pretty, and there's some good-sized fish, so everybody wants to be a rock star and get a picture of it,
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about that. Reggie, I want to have you tell me the story about catching the guy that had 50-something fish over the limit. You told me about that.
Oh, yeah, we chatted about that. Well, that was just kind of a whim, just on this little pond around here, and it just went down that day. I hadn't been on it. I had my little boat and went out and I saw some milk jugs in the water. And I'm like, well, I know there's no rocks. What is that? And I pulled the first one up and it had fishing line with 3 hooks on it. And there was a salmon on one of them. So I kind of looked around and immediately put it back in the water and then went and stashed the boat and hid behind the trees with a spotting scope and watched the guy eventually come out and then got in my boat, followed him back to his camp. And by the time it was all done, I think he had 56 over between brook trout and salmon. I think he had 42 salmon or 46 salmon and a mess of brook trout.
What became of that?
Oh, he lost his license for 10 years.
Right.
He was a fellow from New York State, actually down in the city. Yep, paid a big fine and lost his license. So
yeah,
that was an interesting ticket.
Do you mind if I tell a Reggie Hammond story?
Do I have a choice?
No, you don't. I remembered I was trying to earn my Weeblo badge in archaeology because I was hanging out with the crew down in Farmington that ran the Archaeology Research Center down there. And my friend Bob said, the Dead River is really low right now, Mike. And probably if you went in by the Carey, which is to say where if you were at the Carey Ponds, you could get over to Flagstaff by walking through the woods right there. Right. And that's what the natives did. That's where Benedict Arnold went.
Sure.
Da-da-da-da-da. So I'm over there just trying to figure out what I can find. I don't really find anything, but I'm coming back. And I said, well, I'm going to go look at the river. And I look down one of these roads and there's a truck stashed. So that got my curiosity because it's November.
Right.
So I go walking down this fishing path to the gorge and I look down. I don't really see anything. All of a sudden something catches my eye and it's silver and it's moving. And what I realized, it's one of those click cases, Reggie, where you don't know what you're looking at, but you're not, it doesn't look right.
Right.
And then my eyes made sense of what I was seeing is it was a guy in full camouflage, like a bow hunter with a spinning rod. And he's pulling in a salmon. And he literally is like reaching down to grab the salmon out of the dead river. And he quickly turns and looks up and he's staring right at me. And I'm up the path a little bit, far enough that he can't really see who I am, but he knows that someone saw him.
Right.
So I'm thinking I better get out of here now because I'm a guide.
Right.
This is illegal. I'm like you, man. I want to see this guy get bagged.
Right.
So I drive up out of there quickly, meaning to say heading back down toward North New Portland, and I get a signal on my cell phone. This is back when one of the first cell phones I think I ever had.
Right.
And I called Operation Game Thief, and I didn't know who was going to get dispatched, but it was you. Do you remember that day?
I do remember the call. Yeah, I don't know why I would have gone up there, but I remember talking with you, and I think you gave me the description of the vehicle, a license plate, something.
That's it. You called me.
Yeah.
And you were coming from court.
I was coming
You were
from
in
court.
Farmington.
Okay.
You said, well, I'll go over and...
Yeah, that's right. And then tracked down the vehicle and pulled into the guy's house and walked up on his steps. And it was strange. I think he had all the shades were down or something, which I thought was really strange. It was daytime. It was, and he kind of peered out through and he didn't really come to the door at first. And then he finally came to the door, and I think I explained to him why I was there, and he started to shut the door, and I could see two or at least a couple of salmon in his sink.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, that's not happening. I'm coming in. And so we had a little discussion, and
I like the way you say it. We had a little discussion.
he got a ticket and I got the fish. But yeah, closed season, too many fish. It was a
And without using
different
names,
violation.
I think he was a police officer.
I think it was
from out of state.
Out of state police officer. Yeah. I don't remember if he played that card or not, but it didn't really matter.
I remember because you would come down to see Bob and I at the fly shop.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And I remember you would say, you tell me a little bit about what happened after something we were looking at, or small town stuff. You hear about all this, but I was involved in this on the front end of that.
Yeah, right.
And I fished the Dead River up around Big Eddy, and that's got some good fish in there. And a man could do some serious damage with a spinning rod if he wasn't stopped.
Oh, he could, especially that time of year in low water too.
That's it.
And those fish congregate. But yeah, I missed the fly shop. You and Bob, that was fun. I'd always come in after court or something and tell fishing stories. Nice in the middle of the winter to shoot the breeze.
We had a good run there. It was a fun place, and
it was.
No one got rich doing it, but we had a lot of fun doing it.
I met some good people, and it was great. It was awesome.
And Bob really kind of started a lot of things. I don't know that Chris Thompson or myself would have really been successful at guiding to the extent that we are if it hadn't been for his influence.
Yeah, right.
Bob was a good angler.
He was.
Still is a good angler. Reggie, I can imagine, speaking about this guy that was trying to poach the salmon up on the Dead River, it must be kind of scary, honestly. I mean, I want to live vicariously through your eyes, to be out in the woods with someone that doesn't want to be arrested.
I've never really had a lot, my philosophy was kind of, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So I got pretty aggressive when I knew I was by myself, and never had really too many bad experiences. In the springtime, drunken smelters, they get all brave on you once in a while, but they usually always back right down. And a couple of deer hunting situations. But no, for the most part, I was pretty fortunate. And, back in the early days of warden service, you didn't work with anybody. You were working by yourself.
That's right.
There was no sense to have 2 people work together when you could cover twice as much ground with one.
And your personality is pretty autonomous. In other words, you're self-driven.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Reggie Hammond comes with that reputation.
Well, it might be good, it might be bad, but I had a passion. I do not like people breaking fish and game laws. And right from the beginning of warden service, everyone was like, you can't take it personal. You can't take it personal. You know what? I took it personal. I did. I didn't like people up here in my district doing that stuff. So my family sacrificed for the hours that I put in, and I got to live with that. But so you live with some of the things and mistakes you make in life, and got to keep pushing forward, But it was an awesome job.
I interviewed Bonnie earlier this year in fall. She was one of the first people in the season. Off recording, she told me some story. It's not easy being a warden's wife.
Oh, no, it wasn't. And my wife was a saint, and the stuff that she put up with. Yep. Oh God.
What was your schedule like?
Well,
you didn't clock in at 8 a.m.
No, there was. Here again, I'm talking. It's changed now, but this was back in the day. You can't be effective in this job on a given schedule. Some mornings you're going to get up at dark and go work, and other mornings you're going to, days you could stay out all night if the smelts are running. And I mean, it was just, depending on the season, totally different hours.
Who was your supervisor? During the majority of it.
Yeah, Mike Pratt, funny story about Mike, I was hesitant to come up here because I heard Mike Pratt was kind of hard to work for. And long story short, ends up being one of my best friends in warden service.
I love it.
Pretty funny. Yeah. Then I went through a few, Rick Mills, Chris Simmons, all great guys that really had a lot to do with my career. We all were the same way, just had a passion for doing it, and nothing would get in our way. And, it was an awesome job.
So Chris Simmons, you see him a lot on Northwoods Law, but his brother Dave's also
yeah, David's retired.
Oh, he has?
Yep. I think he works for state police now.
Yeah, we worked as rafting guides together back when I was really young. I was 18 or whatever.
Yeah,
he was running one of the assistant managers on the Kennebec, and I was up on the Penobscot. But those guys both became wardens.
Yeah. Chris came on basically when I came on, so we spent a lot of time together. He had Sebago, and I had Saco. We spent just a lot of time together. Chris is a dear friend, and yeah, we had fun. Sebago, we just not enough hours in the day down there to do what needs to get done.
How do you, if you could describe how the warden service has changed, because I'm going to come out and say it, right? Wardens were not known as the kindest guys back in the day. When I was 15, 16 years old. I remember going on a moose hunt with my dad. Maybe I was 18. And just by virtue of us having a rifle in the front seat, empty, we're up on the Golden Road, and it was like we got attacked by the wardens up there. You weren't one of them. No names will come out. But it seems like there was a push. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't believe you were attacked, but you were probably aggressively checked.
They wanted to come up to see what they could find without us emptying the bolt or anything like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if they were running around with a loaded gun in your vehicle.
Bingo.
Yeah, and some of the laws have changed, but yeah, I think definitely a little more user-friendly now. But you came on this job, you made it through an unbelievable application process of 2,000-3,000 people, and yeah, you came out with a little chip on your shoulder. And back then, yeah, we were supposed to enforce fish and game laws.
Right.
So that's what we did. And I've always felt, and there's be people that would debate this, but I was as nice as I could be to anybody. But you crawl in my area, and that ends.
Yeah,
I paid the price. I spent a lot of time. You ask any game warden, they'll tell you. I spent a lot of time down in Augusta. Mm-hmm. But I also checked a lot of people and was pretty aggressive in my job. And that's just the way I was trained back then. That's the way we were. The Chris Simmonses, Reggie Hammonds, Rick Mills. Mm-hmm. We just were out there pounding around.
Yeah.
So,
and there's something else that you're not talking about that I know about you.
Yeah.
You're quite a runner.
I did in my day. My hips have been blown out now, but yeah, I ran some marathons, and yeah, I used to.
But there's something else you're not telling me.
What is that, Mike?
Well, you guys do your athletic testing every year, or used to have to do that? Yeah,
right. Yeah.
You held the record for.
Well, for a while, but then we got some young studs. But yeah,
you held it for a while.
Yeah, 1.5 miles. Yeah, I think it was. Now you're testing my memory. 6:50 and change, I think.
That's really good.
Yeah, it was fast. I was in good shape back then.
And that's how you could catch the smelters. Running down 17 with nets and buckets in there.
Well, it was, that was a good story. I still see Tim's pile when I see him. We chat about that. Yeah.
Let's take a short break. And I want to talk with you, Reggie, and have you share some stories. Because one of the things that I know about you, just because we have a lot of mutual friends, and I've also just always taken an interest in you as a person, is that you do a lot of fishing around the world. And that's unique. I mean, wardens do a lot of fishing in Maine, but you've taken it to a different level.
Well, I've been fortunate.
So let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll pick up on that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. All right. Thanks, man.
In this Flyline flashback, we turn our attention not to the past, but to the future, rooted in a deep respect for Maine's guiding heritage. Cornelia Fly Rod Crosby blazed trails across the Rangy Lakes and into history as Maine's first registered guide. A gifted writer, a champion of conservation, and a bold promoter of Maine's wilderness. She helped put vacation land on the map in the 1890s, long before hashtags and highway signs were a thing. Now, as a proud member of the Friends of Fly Rod Crosby Committee, I'm part of a mission to ensure her legacy stands tall. Literally. We're working to place a life-size bronze statue of Cornelia Crosby at the new Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife headquarters in Augusta, set to open in 2027. Overlooking the Kennebec River, the statue will honor a woman who brought countless visitors to Maine's woods and waters and championed the outdoor guiding heritage and traditions we still treasure today. The new IF&W facility itself promises to be an environmental showpiece, complete with green energy, outdoor learning spaces, and public programs celebrating Maine's wilderness, wildlife, and sporting culture. It's only fitting that Fly Rod Crosby, guide, trailblazer, and conservationist, be there to welcome all who walk through its doors. You can help bring this monument to life. The committee is raising the funds for this important monument entirely through private donations. Whether you give at the Parmacini Bell level or the Kennebago Wolf level, every contribution helps honor a woman who helped shape Maine's outdoor identity. All donations are greatly appreciated. To learn more or to make a donation, visit friendsofflyrod.org. Again, that is friendsofflyrod.org. Let's make sure Fly Rod is there to greet the next generation of anglers, hunters, guides, and adventurers. And now, back to the second half of this episode. Reggie, we talked about your career as a warden. We probably could spend hours talking about all the different stories that you could share. But one of the things that makes you, I think, a little more colorful as a Maine fishing luminary and legend is you've traveled a lot around the world to fish. You don't just fish in Rangeley for brook trout.
No, I've been very fortunate and had a wife that understood understood the whole situation. But yeah, no, I've done a lot of bone fishing, Bahamas, went to Venezuela, Atlantic salmon fish, steelhead fish out in West. I was fortunate enough to spend a mess of time in British Columbia fishing for steelhead.
Tell me about that.
Oh, that was awesome.
Have you gone multiple times, or did you just
twice? Just twice, but I'd read the stories about the Bulkley, Maurice, Kispiots, all the Skeena thoroughfares. And it was a bucket list trip. And I met a guy, steelhead fishing out in Washington State. We fished the Grand Ronde and the Clearwater out in Idaho. And it ended up being a retired game warden from Washington State. We ended up becoming pretty good friends and fished together quite a bit. And then another buddy of mine, which avid, crazy fisherman, Scott Timothy, he wanted to go, and we ended up getting a group of guys, and 4 of us went out there. He hauled his drift boat out, and
from the East Coast?
No, he was out in Montana.
But that's still a haul.
Yeah, it was a haul.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But he's like us. He's driven.
So we're talking about British Columbia now.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a long damn ways.
Yeah. And one of my things, like I said, one of my bucket list things was catching a wild steelhead, a real steelhead, on a dry fly.
And you did?
And believe it or not, and the 2 guys that went, we accomplished that our first day there. It was unbelievable, yeah. We each caught a steelhead on a dry fly after day 1.
So steelhead is equivalent to what we think of as us Yankees think of as Atlantic salmon fishermen. Steelhead are a little different, though, meaning steelhead fishermen.
Yeah.
I think they can be the guys with a long beard, kind of the Duck Dynasty, tough guys that have really learned how to spay cast well. They'll let their waders rot in the river if they think there's a chance of a steelhead.
Oh, yeah.
And Atlantic salmon guys rotate, they're gentlemen, a little different.
Yeah. No, I don't know. There's something about that steelhead thing. And, it's all two-handed swinging flies, which I love swinging flies anyway. Mm-hmm. And you got a chance that is world famous out there, the Skeena and all the tributaries. That was cool.
What did you learn that you didn't know?
Rainbows and the steelhead hold in different places than salmon. Sometimes some of the better fishing was at the heads of these pools as opposed to in the deeper water. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just got to learn the water more. And we met April Volke out there. She's got a place on the Maurice, on the Bulkley. And yes, we trot, and everybody's in the same deal, just trying to catch a fish. And, but yeah, it's different than any fish that I ever caught. The weather was interesting too. Pretty
snotty.
Oh, we were floating the rivers in those like watercraft, those little rafts and stuff. Things.
One-man inflatables.
Yeah, right.
Oars, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember a couple of mornings, 2-3 inches of snow on that. We're launching a thing headed down the river, and guides freezing up, and yeah. But I'd like to go back to BC. We spent a couple of days on the Kispiots, but not enough. I'd like to go back and fish the Kispiots. But beautiful fish. We went in like the 3rd week of September one year, and then the first 2 weeks in October another year.
So these rivers that you're talking about, just because most of our audience are East Coast guys, are they sustainable runs of steelhead? Are they stock fish?
No, they're all wild fish, and they're real steelhead. They go to the ocean and come back. But yeah, that's a debatable thing. I mean, Canada is pretty aggressive in the way their forest practices are. A lot of siltation, and the numbers are dropping off the chart low. So I don't know what's going to happen. I belong to this little newsletter out there. They paint pretty grim picture of the future.
Yeah.
A lot of netting, and it's just a lot of stuff going on out there.
A lot of working against the fish about everywhere these days.
Right. And Atlantic salmon are the same thing. I go to the Bonaventure every year, and some years it's not that good. I mean, if you can catch 2 or 3 fish in a week up there, I'm pretty happy with that.
You're doing really well.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of clients that go to the Bonaventure that have been skunked in the last 2 years.
Oh,
skunked.
Yeah. No, I've got a good friend of mine. I admire him. He hasn't caught a fish yet. And we're going back again this year. We got good draws this year.
What do they pay for those trips, Reggie?
Well, we do it all on our own.
No, but I mean, if you're the guy that just went up to the Gas Bay and went into one of the private fishing lodges, you must be paying up to $10,000 a week.
Yeah, you go to Camp Bonaventure and some of those things, you're paying $10,000 a week. Yeah, and that gives you, but you're probably fishing the Grand Cascapedia and some of these other rivers that produce bigger fish. But it's a whole procedure. We got drawn this year. I had the earliest draw that I've ever had. And so I've got 4 days in private water in the last week of September.
Right.
Yeah. And the Bonaventure, I've never seen a river as clear. You can see 25 feet down.
I've heard that.
And you're seeing fish. I guarantee you go up there in September, you'll see them. Catching them, totally different story.
Do you have photos of your trip to the up in the Gaspé salmon fishing?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to put those on our website.
Yeah.
I think for the audience to understand, when Reggie says the water, it's almost like the water's not even there. You can see right to the bottom, 20 feet of water.
Right.
So that makes it, when we think of Atlantic salmon fishing, in large part, you don't know you've got a fish following your fly until you feel it.
Right.
Where there, you might say, hey, there's a fish in this.
Yeah. And like I said, we see a ton of fish, but getting them to eat, there's a whole other story with those things, especially if you go up on a low. Last year we went up, it was extremely low water year, and those fish were stale. You couldn't move them, and felt very fortunate. I got 2 in 5 days, and just for no particular reason, just right fly, right spot, aggravate them. And they come up and eat.
If they ain't got to eat, you can't make them.
You can't. And yeah, it's very frustrating, but that river's beautiful. We've gone up enough times, so we're starting to know some people. And I know one of the game wardens up there, the Zach wardens. And I communicate with some of these guys that I've met. And I just hope there's a good run of fish.
Yeah, we all do.
That's the thing.
That is what
you don't know.
Okay, so we talked steelhead, we talked Atlantic salmon, Reggie. Let's segue into warm water.
Well,
you mentioned Venezuela, and we can talk about the Bahamas by just using the B word in itself.
Yeah, right.
How long ago did you start going to the Bahamas?
Well, when I was working, I always had limited time off, so I wanted to catch fish. So I knew the one place in the States I could go catch fish was the San Juan River in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So I went out there for probably 10 years in a row.
That's really cool.
And then I won't say it got boring, but anyway, I felt like I knew that, and I had to get a little more time off. I retired, and then I always wanted to do the bonefish thing and got hooked up with a trip and some friends and couples and got dialed into that. And, after living in Rangeley all winter, it's nice to have that 85-degree carrot dangling out in front of you. So, then we started doing that, I'm going to say, in probably the 2010. I don't know when exactly we started. That's about right.
15 years ago?
Yeah. I missed a little bit of time during COVID, but other than that, every year.
So I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but you went up to the San Juan, so you have some experience with spring creek fishing.
Oh, yeah. I've been to Depews and fished all the Montana stuff. Yeah. It's fun, challenging.
Technical, man.
Technical.
The thing I can't stand about a spring creek is you see these gigantic, beautiful fish. And if you get one to take your fly, you're on like 6X.
Yeah.
And they just go down around all those weeds that you find in every spring creek.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Technical. Well, I got in a discussion with a guy out there, and he was like, you don't have a chance unless you're using 6X. I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm going to stay with 5X. And you know what? I didn't catch many fish until the end of the day, and the sun started going down. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I did what any Maine fly fisherman would do, put on a big woolly bugger and paid some bills and out of it. But, then to peer over a banking and see 20-inch fish come right up to your fly and then turn and go back down, it's very cool. And I'm humble. I've caught enough fish. I don't need to catch any more. So I like the experience.
I like the challenging fish.
I do.
We went to Idaho this fall in September, and it was really cool to be refused.
Mm.
Because you get a caddis hatch in Maine, and you get salmon or pork trout, you can almost do no wrong.
Some of these drake hatches or the hex hatches.
Bingo.
I mean, it's
we're lucky that. Well, for one reason, the hatches aren't that prolific, so the fish have to take advantage of what they can get.
Right.
Where out there, those spring creeks and some of those rivers in Idaho and Montana, Wyoming, have such prolific hatches that they do look at the color, shape, and size, and then they go, is there a hook? Oh, that's 5X.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. You wouldn't think fish could be that picky, but they certainly are.
Let's go back to bonefish. And was the bonefish your first tropical fish?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've done the topping thing. I've caught one permit. I got off that. I don't have enough left in me now to chase those things all over the place, as few as you catch. It would be fun, but I'll stick with the bonefish. And I hooked a really good topping down in Homosassa. A buddy of mine down there fishing, and guy that used to come into your fly shop. Joe, remember Joe from Portugal?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What about Joe from Portugal?
Well, I got down and topping fish with. He's down in Crystal River outside of Homosassa.
So he moved out of Wilton, Maine?
Yeah, remember when his daughter got killed in that accident?
Yeah. He moved there then?
Yeah.
See, I lost touch. I left town.
Yeah, right.
I always wondered where he went.
Yeah, he went down to Crystal River, and I fished with him down there years for topping, and it's been lucky enough to catch. I got one really big one, 150 pounds. It's like hooking your car.
Yeah, I know.
It's fun being out on the flats and seeing huge fish and seeing them porpoise, and I saw a daisy chain. I saw them all in a circle, and they're another picky fish, so they don't break off from their deal that much either.
No, a matter of fact, I have never caught or landed a tarpon, but from all the conversations I've had, you're really best to get one about 50 to 60 pounds. Because if you hook the 150, like you said, that could be multiple hour long affair. And that's only if you play it correctly.
Right. Well, and I just based it on what Joe said. Joe's caught a mess of them, and he goes, yeah, that's a night. And there was 3 fish coming in. The biggest one took, and he's the one that said it was that size. I don't know. All I know it was over 6 feet long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I play some good fish and bonefish, some big bonefish and stuff, but nothing like that.
But you enjoyed bone fishing.
You're just trying to hold that fish and get it to move, and I'm talking topping. And then you got one eye on the hammerheads, the sharks. If you see one shark, it's an instant break off. Those topping are old fish that you're catching out there. That 150-year-old fish is probably 70 years, 150-pound fish, probably 70 years old. I'm not going to be the one that's
going to end it.
We break it off as soon as we see a shark.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the whole bonefish thing. I think a lot of people in Maine like it, and I have fun taking people for the first time. Because it's hunting fishing. You don't cast until you see them. You got to get all right, and you see them, you hunker down in the water, and they're feeding, their tails will be up and down and up and down, and it's fun to lay that fly right in front of them.
Oh, it's an incredible challenge.
It is.
I would say that it's equivalent to what bow hunting is to hunting. Bone fishing is to fly fishing. It requires everything you've got.
Right.
Sight, distance, accuracy, the strip, right, Reggie?
Yeah, it's it all. But then again, just when you say that, you'll go out and plunk one right on the head, and it'll run out and turn around and come back and get your fly. Like it's never seen a fly. I've seen them be really stupid, but as a statement, the majority of the time you're right. They are spooky fish.
I was out one day, Reggie, and it was a real muddy bottom. I couldn't see very well, and I was making a muddy track as you walk, as you're doing in the mud. I decided to look back. Well, who's following me but a bonefish?
Yeah.
So I turn and I throw my fly back at it, and it blew. The second the dumbbell eyes hit the water anywhere near it, it was gone. So I turned my head. It's gone.
Right.
No, it's not. It came right back, grabbed that fly, and took it away from me. I didn't even realize he was there.
Yeah.
So it, like you say, sometimes you think it's they're I think they're opportunistic. They're like a smallmouth bass. They're hungry. They have to eat something.
Yeah, right.
And yes, they're spooky because their life depends on it.
Well, and they're nervous because they're only in 2 feet of water, and so there's a lot of predation there between sharks and, like you say, the birds that are flying over. And but
they have an interesting thing, though. They know how fast they are. And I think that one of the calculus for them is that they say, that thing just spooked me, but it also looked like food. And if I go back and get it quickly, I'll be able to get away with it.
Right.
I just, we always try to anthropomorphize what fish are actually thinking, but that's all I can come up with, because I want to say they're hard, but sometimes they're not.
Well, then you go over, like we chatted about, I'll even say it, you go over to Cherokee Sound, and good luck. There should be a bone-fish psychiatrist in a booth there.
What's wrong? What's wrong, Reggie? What's wrong? What happened today, Reggie?
Oh my God. The refusals that you get out there are unbelievable. Follows, refusals, and everything's perfect. You got a nice cast. Everything's right on, light flies, everything. And they'll follow and then just turn up and be gone. Pretty funny.
It's like a guy in a Carhartt jacket in a discotheque in New York City. Just going to get refused.
Right. But it's fun. I mean, it is. Bonefish is fun. And like I was telling you about, there's leaving Rangeley in the middle of March or in April, and we still got 6 weeks of winter.
You going to be able to go down?
I'm going down this year.
Good,
yeah, definitely. This will be, like I said, a 14th or 15th year we've gone.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Reggie, let's go back to the warden service, if you don't mind.
Sure.
At some point, you said you had an uncle that encouraged you to go down that path, or maybe didn't you say earlier that your
Yeah,
uncle
my uncle, yep.
said,
he's
"Hey,
the one that
Reggie,
took-
this might be a good thing."
Yeah,
for
good
you."
gig for you, right? And I got away from it a little bit and then just started to have some just second thoughts on life and doing what I was doing and pursued that. And yeah, I feel very, very fortunate to be a game warden. And another thing I'll say, during the time I was one, I think a lot of things have changed in warden service now. And I don't know if it would be quite as enjoyable for me personally now
Right.
as it was back in the 90s when we were before computers and cell phones. I mean, I'd go back in the backcountry, sleep in the truck for 2 or 3 days. And I'd tell my wife, I'd say, no problems. You don't see me by Friday, call somebody. That's just the way it was. There was no worried about checking computers or all
So
that stuff.
let's swap hats now. Let's say that you're that uncle.
Yep.
And what would your words of advice be to an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid that graduated from school here in Maine and was thinking about becoming a warden? What would you tell him?
Well, I would tell him to research it and make sure what he wants to do. I mean, a lot of our game wardens had law enforcement background. I never had any interest in being anything but a game warden, as far as it being a municipal or a trooper or anything. But it's changed. The hours have changed. It's just so much change now that you just want to research it and make sure you want something that you want to do. I'm sure it's still an awesome job, but compared to what we used to do and the amount of freedom that we had, and we were a much more resource-related department. We did snow machine stuff and lost hunters, and that's a whole nother conversation of the lost people that we dealt with, especially up in this country. But the emphasis was on resource violations, fishing game stuff.
Yep.
The guy that caught too many fish, the guy that was night hunting too many deer, getting somebody to tag it, all that stuff. And I don't really know because I'm not involved in it now, but I can just see, I don't know. It seems like there was a lot more cohesiveness. I mean, you did stuff on your days off with game wardens. Your whole life was built around that. Go down to the IGA with civilian clothes. Everyone wants to know where the smelts are running, when the ice is going out, seen any big deer. I mean, and I embraced it. I didn't bother me at all. I didn't need my separation. And my wife the same way. I mean, she got dialed into phone calls all the time about, well, you know anything about the smelts or this and that? And she'd tell them what I told her to tell her. And we'll leave it at that. But it was just, you were the main, in these small communities, you were the person that came down to outdoor stuff that people got a hold of. And as much as people thought I was kind of a hard ass, they knew in a second if it was midnight and their kid was lost, I'd be out there doing what I could do in friggin' 2 seconds.
That's right.
So I think there was a little mutual respect that, I had the reputation of writing my own mother a ticket, but I also had a reputation of doing anything I could for anybody.
Yeah. I think people would think twice about breaking laws in your territory.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope.
So when you compare that to how it is now, are they just putting more wardens in the field now, or are they changing their hours around? Or
yeah,
there must be an upside to it. I'm trying to just
I'm sure there is. There's more education. I honestly think that there isn't as much probably poaching or as many violations as there were back then because it's not socially acceptable right now.
No.
When I grew up, you go down to the coffee shop and Joe would be talking about how we shot a deer that night and everybody would be chuckling about it. You get out of the coffee shop now and say that and probably someone's going to be calling somebody about looking into it. You know what I mean? So it's just not as sociably acceptable as it once was, the whole poaching thing. And I think even the hardcore guys are realizing that this isn't going to go on forever. You've got to protect the resource either by rules or I'm not saying it doesn't still happen, because I still strongly believe that people are opportunists. There's obviously the hardcore poachers that go out at 6 o'clock at night with their night in the spotlight and they're going to shoot a deer that night, right? There's those people. But a lot of people are opportunists. When the smelts are running or the fish are biting or that, they weren't planning on doing it, but they don't get out much, so they can justify it in their mind about taking an extra 2, 3, 4 quarts of smelts or something, or 2 or 3 extra fish.
Well, you grew up in Maine. I grew up in Maine. Growing up in Maine, if you got your deer,
it was a big deal.
You did something.
Yeah.
Now you can hunt them with a baseball bat in southern Maine.
And I don't even know. I think if you want to keep buying the permits, you can kill as many as you want.
As many as you want. Yeah, that's $25. I was talking to a buddy. I said, Rob, you already got your deer. You shot a nice 8-pointer. Yeah, but I've got a permit to shoot another one now. I said, how's that work? He goes, we have a deer problem.
Yeah,
which again goes to what you were saying about poaching. You don't have to poach if you can shoot them during the day.
No.
I came up to see Chris Thompson this fall during hunting season.
Yeah.
You had a doe down on a lawn in Morton Furbush Realty in town, standing there eating green grass on a Saturday.
I know. I remember when I was a kid, if you saw a couple deer during the whole season, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I saw one today. Never mind kill one.
No.
And now, but I think that's maybe not a good thing, but this new era of young people, they need instant gratification. And I think that's why hunting and fishing maybe is going by the wayside with young people.
Yep.
If they can get on their ATVs and snow machines and be right at the top of their fun level within a minute. But you can go hunting and not see a deer all day. You can go fishing and not catch a fish all day. Right. And so, it's more, we understand it because we're out in the surroundings and we just like being out there. Right. But I mean, some of these young people get bored if it's not happening within a short time.
Yeah. No, when we were young, our brains weren't conditioned to stare into a cell phone. And our brains were conditioned to go out and hunt and fish and do those sort of things. And you're right. I think that the times are changing. But what I found success with is you take a kid like that and you take him smallmouth bass fishing,
right?
Because it's pretty action packed,
right?
And there are certain activities, and really hunting is not particularly if there aren't deer around or birds running across the road, it gets pretty dull for a young kid,
right?
Which plays into our hands because we enjoy it,
right? But and it's not as sociably acceptable as it once is. I remember going to school in Gary High School in Portland, and at the end of the day, we had shotguns in our vehicle and we'd go bird hunting over in Falmouth and Yarmouth.
Right.
Obviously, you don't want to show up in school with a shotgun in the back of your vehicle now.
No.
Times have changed. But I know it's just a whole different world we live in. And there isn't the computer, social media, it's all adds up into these people not getting as outdoors as much as they should,
Yeah.
But
Reggie, I don't think I'm confusing you with somebody else because there's not many wardens that I know as well as I know you. Didn't you catch a guy poaching deer twice in the same place?
Yeah, the Vermont guy. That was one of the most
Tell me that
bizarre things. Yeah, well, we were set up over on Route 16 going to Langtown. I think Blaine was with me, and it was 2 or 3 of us, and we got this guy, shot a deer in the middle of, it was early in the morning, like an hour and a half before daylight, and guy that I kind of knew of, Vermont guy, and took him to jail and confiscated his gun and all that stuff. And back then it took a while to process the whole thing. So anyway, he was allowed to hunt the next year, still had his hunting license. Same day, same field, same decoy deer.
Oh,
he comes back again.
You got him with a decoy?
Yeah, got him with a decoy. Yeah. Same day. 1 year later, he comes back again and shoots a deer again. And we come out of the woods and
same warden.
Same bunch of wardens. Yeah, I was there, and that was a little bit scary because he didn't stop. So I jumped on his mirror and I got dragged a couple of telephone poles down before we finally pulled over.
He shot it out of the window.
We never got out. Just blew right out through the window. And told his buddy to hit it. And then, of course, I was hanging onto the driver's side mirror, just screaming at him to stop. And when he finally stopped, we had a discussion about what he did, and off they went. And again, the same guy. Yeah, I'm like, I know the guy. So what are you doing? He said, I don't know. I said, all right, you're going to jail. Same to you. So that was kind of a funny story.
I think that's the definition of
not bird
insanity. Repeating the same mistake twice and expecting a different outcome.
I'm pretty sure Blaine was there too, yeah. But we had a lot of fun. Blaine and I had a lot of fun together over the years.
What would you say you're most proud of? There's one thing that we're not talking about, Reggie, in that you did win Warden of the Year. But you're recognized as your peers for being Warden of the Year. And a lot of guys will go through their entire career and retire and not be recognized. Well, your peers, because I wanted to do a little bit of research before this discussion, said that you were one of the most driven. He said they would say that a lot of wardens would be strong for a year or two, but Reggie was strong for his entire career. That's a testimony to your autonomy and your drive and your passion for the outdoors.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people had mixed opinions on that, I guess, if I'm going to be honest, because I was fairly abrasive and got some personnel complaints, right? And that's no big secret. But I mean, I did work hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I worked hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, my biggest regret is the amount of time that I took away from my family. I did the coaching and all that stuff, but still. And we hadn't chatted about it, but my wife recently passed away.
I didn't know that, Richard.
Yeah, a few years ago. And so, that was our time that we were going to do stuff after I retired. So I definitely have some regrets looking back, but she never did. It was who I was and what I did, and I pretty much went full throttle down most of the time.
You did.
And sometimes it got me in hot water, and sometimes it all worked out right. But
did she live a full life, or did she?
Well, she passed away from a rare form of Parkinsonism.
Oh,
Yeah, it came about very suddenly, and yeah, it was pretty sad. She was a gym rat, all that, and just, yeah.
When your number's up, and I don't mean to sound, say that offhandedly, but I just had a close friend die recently, and also a mother of a very close friend of mine died just recently. And the older we get, we take inventory of the way that we're living our lives.
Right.
And I do maintain you can live really a healthy life and take the vitamins and go to Pilates, and if your number's up, it's over. And then you take the next guy that abuses himself on Jameson's whiskey his entire life and smokes 2 packs of Marlboros and lives to be 89.
Right.
So,
the thing that I took away from that, one of the things was which I think as game wardens, you never let things sneak up on you. You're always looking around. I still go in restaurants and have them sit in the corner where I can see everything. Just can't get that out of your system. But man, I never saw that coming.
No.
Never. Not in a million years. I just never saw it coming, never gave any thought that possibly she could pass before I did. It just never entered my brain. When that all transpired, it was pretty tragic. And then, of course, kids and grandkids and all that stuff. So
you had children?
Yeah, a boy and a girl. Yep.
And your son's a guy?
Yeah, he works in Alaska, and he's lived quite the life. I'm very fortunate. Both of them still have a passion for the outdoors and fishing and hunting and all that stuff. And Luke has taken it to another level. I mean, he guides sheep and moose out in Alaska. He runs a big rainbow lodge off the King Salmon on the Mackinac River. And,
that's $10,000 a week.
Well, not for the way he runs it, because he grew up with the camps that I had in Kennebago. Bare bones, but be on the water.
Okay.
And so, his is kind of a no-frills thing, reasonably priced, and you spend your time on the water, not being pampered to.
No.
But,
Reggie, you just touched on something. I want to go back to your wife for just a minute. I would say that nothing good comes out of something like that, but hindsight is 20/20. And when my father passed away, he had terminal cancer. He had a brain tumor. He died 12 days after diagnosis.
Wow.
Right? It was a blessing that he died that quickly, because I think we would have suffered if it had gone on for years and years and years. In hindsight, was it okay that she?
Well, there's a little more to that story, and I don't know, but I mean, Janet refused to give in to that disease. And there's different alternatives now. And she was involved in the whole Death with Dignity program and decided that was the way to go. Because this disease that she had, this multiple systems atrophy, was basically ALS.
Yeah.
And she was losing total control of the muscles. But she made the right decision. Or the whole, we all discussed everything. It's tragic, and and they say, cliche as it is, time heals everything. It doesn't heal it, but it makes it more tolerable. And the fact that she was sick a while, we did get a chance to talk about everything.
Good.
And all her wishes and what she wanted, So I guess in that situation, it worked out as well as it could possibly work out.
She was a stay-at-home mom?
No, she was the librarian at the school for years and years and years.
No
kidding. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tragic, but hey, that's life is. That's why you can't take things for granted. You never know what tomorrow's going to be like.
Got to go on fishing trips.
I'm planning to do plenty of that.
So what's this season look like for you?
Oh, I'll go on my Bahamas trip, come back, and then Chris doesn't get really busy guiding, so I'll hook up with him. We'll fish a little bit, try some new spots, and then I got a nice flats boat, so I'll go play around the Kenneback and pull some people around looking for stripers and Atlantic salmon trips, a couple of those, and I got to do some work on my camp this year, but I mean, fishing's fishing.
We didn't talk about that, Reggie. You for a long time, as long as I can remember, you've owned camps on the Kennebago.
Yeah.
Now, you've since sold most of them, but you were in it as a guide. You had a guide service.
Yeah, guiding and housekeeping. Yeah, 24 years, I think we had them. Yeah. No, it was fun. Yeah, a lot of work, but it was enjoyable. My wife loved it. And I met a lot of really, really nice people there, guided a little bit out of it. And then when I sold those, I started guiding out of Bose Bucks with Mike and Cindy up there. That was fun. I love that upper Palmachini, upper McGalloway country.
Yeah.
It's being all cut off now, kind of. But no, it was awesome. But the camps are very busy. Kennebago's a great lake, believe me. And the lower river, you fished it, between the dam down the upper part, too. Was plenty of fish there.
Oh, I caught some
very good fishing.
I've caught some really nice fish in what I would consider the public waters.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Down below.
Yep.
And great fish. Big brook trout, big salmon.
Right.
In that slower water, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. No, I've spent a lot of time between, especially from the bridge inside the gate all the way down to Route 16, paddled canoes and looked, and even in the off season. And I snorkeled most of those holes. I know some of those pools really well. Just I had a really interest in it, so it was fun to see where these fish were lying and different structure on the bottom. And
So you mentioned earlier, Reggie, that when you were coming out of the Criminal Justice Academy,
right,
they said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Where do you see yourself in 5 years now?
Oh, now, well, I'd come up into Rangeley. I like Rangeley. So I actually stayed my plane. I was in Rangeley 3 years before I got hired, but I don't know. It's a whole different game for me now. Not to get super personal, but I won't really have a companion to do things with. I've got some unbelievable network of close friends. I'm so blessed for that. But, I'll do my trips. Winter isn't what it used to be to me. When I was a game warden, I had a new sled every other year and a credit card. So I don't really need to get on a snow machine again. No. But I could see myself going someplace where it's a little warmer. Florida is way too congested, but someplace where I could play around the golf and fish. And when you live in Rangeley, 50 is like summer. So I can go to the Carolinas or something maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But, time will tell.
Time will tell.
I really know. And you can't predict the future, so.
No.
But,
you have, I think, just listening to your talk today and also just knowing your reputation, that I don't think you've squandered your life.
No, well, I hope not.
No, you've taken advantage of everything. You've gone fishing whatever time you could. You worked as hard as you could. You had a decorated career. You're a warden of the year. What year did that happen? 2007, I want to say.
You know more than I do.
I think it was 2007.
Some plaque that's in a closet here somewhere that says it. But no, I was proud of that. Because I worked hard and coming from Rick and some of the other people. But it met with a little bit of head scratching because, like I said, I think part of it was I could be abrasive if somebody crawled into my space. But I was proud of that for sure.
I think every warden that I've ever known in my life in Maine holds you in the highest regard.
Well, yeah. Well, I took the heat for some of them. So they ought to hold me in regard.
Well, Reggie, I know I say this a lot, but I know you and I could tell stories for hours, especially some of the warden stories and poachers and deer hunters at night and all sorts of stuff. But I think the valuable part of this story really is about it's a warden's life that it's really spent technically fly fishing as well, because you did a lot of that. And I think a lot of people recognize that about you.
Fly fishing is what got me to Rangeley. That was one of the reasons I wanted to come up here as a game warden.
Yeah.
I knew the history. I knew Upper Dam, Lower Dam, Carey Stevens, Kennebago. Oh, believe me, Palmachini. I knew it all before I came up here. I spent a lot of time in the library back in my day before the internet and all this. And I was ecstatic to be able to get up here within 3 years.
Rangeley is the happy hunting ground. And Reggie, it means everything that you took the time, offering us the privilege of your time to tell your stories and share what it's like to be a warden in the state of Maine during the career that you lived in.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, Reggie, thank you.
Yeah, that was my pleasure.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for joining us for this intimate discussion, and thank you for listening to Flyline Podcast. We're proud to be sponsored by Geiger, the world's largest family-owned promotional products distributor based in Lewiston, Maine. Their support helps us share the rich history of Maine's fishing community through the stories that will be cherished for generations. A new Flyline Podcast episode is released every 2 weeks on Tuesdays, so be sure to come back to meet our next famous guest. Until then, this is Michael Jones, and we invite you to visit the blog section of our website to enjoy photos and contributions from our guests and experience all of the episodes at flylinepodcast.com.